So let's talk about like things that we see that are in the world that flare people up about like butt wink and then knees caving in. I want to hear your take on those things. And
so let's talk butt wink, right?
Okay,
that's a big thing. Everyone's talking about butt wink. Exactly. So butt wink is basically a posterior pelvic tilt when you go into the bottom of a squat, right? So if you watch mine, as I go down, right, past 90, my hips get sort of turned under my body, right? So it's a posterior pelvic tilt. Now there's a number of reasons why this happens. One reason a lot of people believe is due to an anatomical restriction. So basically as your hips are going forward, your femur's going in your hip capsule, right? It reaches its anatomical end range, right? Can't flex anymore. Now two things could happen. A, you could get that pinch, right? Or B, your pelvis will just turn under to compensate, right? So that's where you'll get that whole rotation, okay? Now, theoretically, most people get really scared of butt wink, right? Because what happens is the lumbar spine flexes, right? Yeah, exactly. You get that bend, right? So instantly people jump on it and they go, oh, that's going to cause you to have a herniated disc, right? A disc bulge. I don't think it's as big of a deal as many people have made it out to be. Now, here's the deal. For just a regular bodyweight squat, right, you should be able to sit down here, most people, healthy athletes, with a little bit of tilt in their lower back and be completely fine. It's not going to cause
it's not
you
under load. So.
Exactly, it's not under extreme load. Yes, there's a little load, but it's not anywhere near the point to where it's going to cause you harm in your back. So butt wink is all about how much is it and when does it occur, right? Is it at the very bottom of your squat, or is it like as soon as you get to like this part and then all of a sudden you go, right? That person that has that huge motion early on in their squat probably already has a history of back issues, right? Because their hips are really, really tight, right? So that's the thing is I think it's been overblown to where as soon as someone's pelvis tilts a little bit, people instantly call butt wink. That's horrible for your back, right? Now, can it be bad for your back? Under load, when it's excessive, for sure. Right? So let's say you're squatting a lot and every single time you go down, you're naturally going ass to grass and your pelvis is tilting a lot and it's causing you to lose that stability in your back. Well, there's a lot of pressure going down through your spine that can force a disc bulge, right? Now it's not going to happen all at once. It's going to be a slow process. Exactly. It's after lots of load and lots of rep. Over time, it can cause, right, that disc bulge, the annulus sort of pokes out against the back, right? So if anyone has sort of that pain that shoots down their legs, that's usually significant of a disc bulge, you know? So that's the big thing. If you're an athlete with a history of back pain, going ass to grass when you can't maintain a good neutral spine is not a good idea, right? So that's why barbell squatting depth is always based on a number of things, primarily anatomy, right? Not everyone is cut out to squat ass to grass, anatomically with a barbell on their back. They should be able to, right? Because in a bodyweight squat with your back around it, a little bit, it's not the biggest thing. But once you put a barbell on your back, things change a little bit because we have so much load going down through the spine, right? So I saw there was an athlete, I can't remember who it was, a Russian athlete. He was doing a snatch, and I put it on Instagram the other day, right? And at the very bottom of his snatch, he's got some posterior pelvic tilt. Right? He's butt winking a little bit. I don't think it's that big of a deal, right? If it's very small at the very bottom of the squat in a healthy athlete without a history of back pain, right? So that's the biggest thing is when does it happen? Is it excessive or not? And does that athlete have an injury history?
Yeah, these are the questions that people need to ask. Well, people just see stuff on Instagram, or they're like, oh, you got a butt wink. Internet coaches be just timing in them, but you don't know, like, they could be totally fine.
Exactly.
You don't know their history, or it could be something that's actually...
Exactly. Now comes the second question, can it be fixed? Right? Now, to a point, right, if it's an anatomical restriction, I can't do anything about that. But most people haven't hit their mobility.
Why can't you do anything about that?
Exactly. Oh, why can't we do anything about that? We can't fix how much that femur is going to hit as far as its mobility forward, right? Now, if it's a pinching sensation, we can definitely try to improve a little bit upon that. Exactly. Joint, but I can't change someone's anatomy to a point, right? Now, we can
shave a little bit off the femoral head.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, exactly. Short of surgery, right?
I've considered that because this hip has been tight for years.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that do resort to that, right? But all right, now here's the deal, though. I don't believe most people have hit their potential for mobility, right? So there's a lot of other things that go into an athlete's butt wink, right? Yeah. So here's the deal, right? Let's say you have tight
technique.
For sure, yeah, exactly. So it could be core stability, right? As they get to here, they lose their core stability. So maybe it's more of a back thing, and you're just seeing the hips sort of move.
I was going to ask if once you rule out that it's, let's say, not a hip flexion mobility issue, what are the other problems it could be?
Ankle mobility is a big one.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because if you have stiff ankles, when you go down into a deeper squat, your knees can't translate further forward over your toes, right? So in order to get greater depth, your pelvis is going to have to compensate more. Exactly. So you're going to lose that pelvis position is going to get pulled under.
Okay.
So instantly, I'd go over, I'd screen that athlete's ankles. We find out they have stiff ankles, right? There's one thing we can improve upon to then allow that person to squat deeper with a more upright trunk and keep their pelvis position.
Yeah.
Okay, what about aside from ankle flexibility?
Yeah. Just generally just mobility of the hips and everything like that. So you're going to do a full body screen and really see what deficits you can find to work on.
Okay. Yeah. And then if a person did have an issue, let's say that they were winking early on in the movement, would you have them maybe squat maybe higher?
Yeah, well, it would be, I guess, what are the modifications? So let's say it's an ankle issue, right? And they're winking really early on in the motion. I'm gonna probably have them not squat like max out. I'm not gonna have them do a ton of load, a lot of reps, because it's really excessive, right, while I work on it. So that's gonna be one time where I'm probably gonna take them out of training excessively ass to grass until I can fix a problem, right? Now, let's say for some reason, it's an anatomical issue. That person just cannot do it without excessive butt wink at the very bottom. That person just may not be right for ass to grass squats, right? So for that person, they may need to be able to learn how to squat barbell wise to like a parallel position. Maybe even switching to like a low bar squat would be better for that person, right?
Yeah. So, and then if they ended up, working out these issues, maybe they could go maybe a little bit lower, like especially if they had mobility issues.
Exactly. Yeah. So maybe one of those things that we just need to take a time out from training really heavy till we fix our movement issue. For sure. Now let's say it's not excessive, right? Let's say it's just a little amount. I'm all right with you still training, right? Let's train what we can train while we fix what we can fix. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Too many people, I think they're like, oh well, if you're not moving perfectly, then don't train. But
yeah, you want to fix the issues, and obviously you want to avoid injury and not get hurt, but you don't want to get worse either.
For sure. And there's the big thing, as I call it, like the technique continuum, I guess is a nice way to say it, right? And you've got like 3 different categories, just real simple. You got perfect technique or optimal, right? You've got acceptable technique, and then you've got poor technique, right? So as a coach, understanding where your athlete fits in there is really important, because just because an athlete's not moving perfectly doesn't mean they need to stop training, right? I want you to be able to train hard, but I also want you to be able to move well before you do that, right? Now, I said move well. I didn't say move perfect, right? Because obviously it's our goal to move perfect every time, but I want you to be safe. So if you're in that acceptable category, I'm okay with you still training really hard. Now, a big thing for that, right? Let's say we look at the knees, right? A lot of athletes, their knees wobble in, right? As long as they're wobbling just a tiny bit, that's not the worst thing in the world, right? People scream valgus when they see someone's knees do that a little bit. Just waver a little bit, right? Kendrick Ferris, his knees waver a little bit.
A lot of high-level weightlifters.
Exactly. It's not the worst thing in the world. Now, here's the deal. I don't think it's as optimal as it could be. But I'm definitely not going to say, hey, Kendrick, you need to take a step back.
Back to the PVC, Kendrick.
Exactly.
Silver line.
Yeah, exactly. Now, for a beginner, right, if their knees are wavering, I'm probably going to take a little bit more time to sort of teach them, right? Because a beginner is very different than an elite athlete. That elite athlete's had thousands and thousands of repetitions. It's going to be really tough for me to change their motor pattern from here. But again, let's say I have an elite athlete and their knees cave in like crazy. That's that poor category. And that's where I don't care how much you can lift. If you can't lift with acceptable technique, you're going to get hurt. That's the big thing. I want to keep you safe.
Do we have time to maybe do some barbell, like barbell squats, just to go over, like, see what kind of what you think is acceptable technique?